So can you ride an enduro bike on Long Island? We're going to find out today by riding at Hemstead Harbor Woods. Hemstead Harbor Woods is the most technical trail on Long Island, and it is by far the most difficult trail. I will be swapping bikes with my friend Epicpinoymtb. He rides a 2020 Revel Rail, and he will be riding my nukeproof Scout enduro hardtail. He did not want to swap bikes yet because he wasn't sure of his hardtail handling skills. So on Nor'easter and Pipeline, I am going to be warming up on my own bike and then swap back for the main loop. In hindsight, he should have swapped earlier because he crushed boulder guys with my bike better than any of his old previous bikes.
Back up, right? So change of plans, was originally gonna ride my friend's Vita Summit, but this is the Revel Rail Carbon 165 Wonder bike. Friend bought it to ride as a one do-it-all bike, and he's suffering for it. So he's riding my nukeproof Scout, gonna see what the hardtail life is all about. And I'm gonna suffer on this grind because it's hard even for me on my Scout. So let's see how this thing rides.
So what are we riding today? We are riding a 2020 Revel Rail. It is a full carbon 165mm travel enduro bike with a 170mm travel fork. He upgraded this to a Fox 38 because he wants to go to the bike park. He's got Magura MT7 brakes, 170mm Fox transfer dropper post. The dimensions are as followed. It's got a wheelbase of 1230. This is a large, by the way. Head angle 65 degrees, seat angle 75 degrees. The reach is 470mm. Estimated top tube is 590 due to the steep seat angle. Chainstay is 430. The bike is a 27.5 wheeled bike.
We'll see what happens in the next section.
I am 5'8" with a 32-inch inseam, and this large actually fits me okay. It's not too bad. Yes, I did ride back to back with another enduro bike, the 2021 Vita Summit.
I'm not even exaggerating.
And that thing for sure pedaled a lot better, did not zap my energy as much from just pedaling around. This will probably get thumbs down from the Revel fanboys, but that's just how I feel, and I was able to confirm it back to back. I can tell you this is not my first time riding this bike. This is actually my second time, and this bike drags.
This is like sandpaper.
Like when he first bought this bike, I rode it at Cunningham Park, and it had a really firm initial pedaling. I didn't really have a sag point when you ride, downhill. But it didn't want to sprint. It didn't want to pump, and I used to think that maybe he had the acid guys in the front that made it feel like it had the brakes on. So this time he switched over to the Maxxis Minion DHR 2s. So I go, okay, maybe that was the secret to making this thing ride better. Once again, riding this thing barely feels like it wants to roll downhill. So I'm pedaling a lot just to maintain momentum on this thing. And Phil also got a Vita Summit, which is another big travel bike. He's got even more travel. He's got a 170mm travel versus 165 on this Revel Rail. And it feels different. Like on this Revel Rail, while there's no sag, it feels like it's absorbing the first, if you're going on a clock, it's absorbing like the first 10 minutes on the clock face for the power stroke, and then it's smooth after that. So even just pedaling around feels like it's sucking your energy away. Whereas on Bill's 2021 Vita Summit, which is a big boy bike also, he's got a softer off the top feel from the sag, but once it hits the sag point, the anti-squat feels higher, and it actually does pedal. When I was momentarily riding Phil's bike, I felt a lot more fresher. Like I felt like I can actually pedal this thing all day versus the Revel Rail. As I am walking back to my house, I just realized my quads are burning, and they never burn when I ride. So that shows how much effort I have to put in just to maintain the speed that I normally get from the hardtail, from just pedaling around, just because I have to sprint on this bike to even maintain any momentum. So the question is, can you ride an enduro bike on Long Island. I mean, technically you can, but it's really unenjoyable. In fact, it was quite horrible. It sucked so much energy out of me. Epi was on my hardtail, and he was ready for round 2. I barely could make it back to the trailhead on this thing. And like Steve from Hardtail Party says, when you buy a bike, you really should buy the bike that you're gonna ride 95% of the time. And maybe just deal with the 5% of the time that you think, which is, so Epi bought this bike to be a bike park bike, and this is based on Jeff from Worldwidecylery, because he raves about this bike, and so other reviewers are saying, oh, this thing pedals so good, blah blah blah, you can use this as like a one bike quiver killer bike. And even after the first second, I'm like, wait, are we talking about the same bike here? Because it totally does not pedal good, and it saps a lot of energy from you. It doesn't really pump good, and I would say because of the terrain is different. I think from where those people live, they have a lot of fire road climbs that you just sit and spin, whereas Long Island, there's a lot of up and down technical punchy climbs. You need to sprint a lot, and for that type of riding, when you got to do, like, there's not even a lot of long descents, it's just not worth it. It's you know, which is why Epi is looking and shopping around for a smaller trail bike, because he dealt with this for a year and he just can't take it anymore. He's hiking a bike too much. He tried changing tires to make it roll faster. It still doesn't want to roll. And that's an issue when you try to buy a bike online, especially a full suspension, without throwing a leg over it, because you can only have, like, you know, these companies or sponsored riders telling you how it pedals, and you just have to assume and take it at face value. And then when you finally spend all this money on the bike, you're like, wait a minute, this is nothing like what they were describing, you know? So that's it.
Washed out.
But I will admit, the 2021 Nukeproof Mega and the 2021 Vita Summit does challenge the notion of having a big bike that's complete overkill for Long Island to actually be pedalable. But I rode those at a trail that didn't really require a lot of climbing, and I did not have enough seat time on the summit to make a fair assessment on it. So maybe when I get a chance to get a better ride, I'll have a better understanding of how these things ride differently, because maybe other bikes can be a one bike do it all, but just not this one. Sorry, Epi, I know this bike is a very nice bike and very expensive bike. It's just not the right bike for around here. He will make, Epicpinoymtb will actually make a video on his point of view of riding a hardcore hardtail. And we'll see what his opinions are when he's riding just the right amount of bike. So pretty much when I fell in the last berm over here from high siding, it fell on the drivetrain side and bent the derailleur hanger. And from this moment on, I could not do any of the technical climbs because the drivetrain's all jacked up. It kept jumping from gear to gear no matter how much I adjusted the barrel adjuster.
Guys, most technical trail in Long Island on an enduro bike. My rear brakes are touching the handlebars, and let's see if an enduro bike can do this type of trail.
So what do I like about this bike? It looks good. It's actually not that heavy weight-wise. I didn't have it on a scale, but picking it up, it didn't seem too bad. It is a carbon bike after all. The seat tube, while not the steepest seat tube on paper, it did make it up a lot of the steep climbs, no problem. It actually puts you in a good position, but having such a steep tube, even with the long reach when you're pointing uphill, it does bring the handlebars like kind of right to your chest. But don't mistake in being a good, smooth, steep climber as a good technical climber, because that's not how it felt when I was riding it in terms of the technical climbing. Now, the issue I have with this is I can't push this thing hard enough on the local trails to really feel what this bike is designed for. So I can't really say any other good things because that would be lying. Now the cons on this bike, pretty much my entire ride impressions. It's not the right bike for this area. I can't even honestly assess this thing. All I know is that while editing this video, I am still extremely tired and burnt out, and even my wife is like, "Why are you so tired?" I blame it on this bike. Don't call me a wimp. So while it was horrible to do all these technical climbs on this bike, and I was really struggling and exerting a lot of energy, I would still say it's not a totally 100% fair assessment, because I can't even do the most fundamental part of riding the bike, which is having a drivetrain that's not going to skip on me when I apply any power to it. But in hindsight, the fact that Epi was able to get really smooth power transition and I kept spinning out for the few moments that it didn't skip, I think it might have been the oval chainring, because he was able to do all the parts on my hardtail at 1 or 2 tries, which is pretty much how many tries it usually takes me to do boulder guys on my own bike. So it could be the oval, or it could be just this bike being so hard to manipulate with so much travel in it.
There we go. That was sketchier than I would like. Took a tighter line. Epicpinoymtb mountain bike, riding my Scout through boulder guys, making short work of it. Took me like 4 tries on his bike to do it.
So Epicpinoymtb is gonna also make a video with his impressions of riding my hardcore hardtail through this trail, because he's really looking for a much better bike for 95% of his riding, and hardtails are definitely on his list. And you will see how quick and how short of the work he put on all the features that I am not doing a good job on today.
Let's try that again.
Because I am a very lazy, low-effort editor, my video will be done the same day that I filmed. I will post his link in the description as soon as his video is ready, so you can see his beautifully edited video when it arrives, probably a week later.
Yo, it's getting
so I kept trying over and over at boulder guys, because it was honestly pissing me off at how many tries it took for me to do this stuff. Because normally I can do it with moderate difficulty on my own bike, and because of the fact I know I can do it, and I'm having such a hard time on this bike, it was really annoying.
How am I going to get on with so little momentum?
I am generally a pretty subdued guy, so the scream here is genuine screams of joy. I don't think you have ever heard me scream this loud when I clear any big features. So this just gives you an idea of how much I was struggling, how frustrated I was at this particular section on this bike.
My old bike is 1 try, and you did it on your first try. Damn you.
That's my second.
That's your second attempt? Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I stopped in the first.
But still, look how many
So that's my video. Thanks very much for having the patience to listen to me rant and ramble
that's a good video, I guess.
incoherently.
Oh, God.
I will post the video next time. Thank you. Bye.